Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to a new episode of Empowering Voices. We have a special guest today. It's Sadie. Sadie will tell us in a second. Welcome, first of all, to Empowering Voices. She will tell us in a second what she does. I can just introduce her as a life coach, but it's very reductive what I say. I'd really like you to tell us what you do. And then we start our conversation that today has a special quote that is the one I embroidered here is I have a voice. And it's really, really appropriate for what Sadie does for all the women out there. Welcome and tell us a bit about you.
Lovely, thank you. I'm so pleased and excited to be here and kind of have this opportunity to talk about what I do. So my name is Sadie from This Curious Life Coaching, and I am a life coach for women who are looking to break out of the weight and expectation that society puts on us about who we are supposed to be and who we should be, and the path that we are supposed to follow, and instead embrace a kind of an uncaged life where you are being curious about your potential, your purpose, and not feeling held back by other people's expectations, and instead embracing who you are on the inside, and just being a little bit wilder with who we are and exploring a little bit more off the beaten path to see what's kind of beyond what that easy, simple, straightforward path is for us, and being a little bit more curious about what's off in the woods.
Yeah, because I always say, one of my favorite quotes is unapologetically me, exactly for that reason. You don't have to apologize to anyone for who you are, and you have to be wild enough to take it out. And as you said, the society has expectations on us, but sometimes it's also quite comfortable to stay engaged in those expectations.
It is very much so, and there's lots of clever ways that society makes us feel comfortable where we are, and that whole comfort zone idea is it's comfortable to stay there. So we kind of build a space that feels safe. But this is my own kind of personal journey that I've seen reflected in my clients, is that you get to a certain stage where you're kind of looking for, you're feeling that there must be something else than what's there, and simple and comfortable is great for a while, but it's not as interesting and exciting as kind of being a little bit more adventurous and bold.
Yeah, and although it seems very dry to say, but we have one life, right? And we have to live it at our fullest. And the only way is to get over that comfort zone and explore the options that we don't know until we get there. And unfortunately, we have people like you guiding us, right? So actually your brand, your business has a very interesting name to start with, because it's this Curious Life Coaching, and the concept of curiosity is very interesting, because it's with that we can advance and change our state, right? Asking questions, going for something that we don't know how will develop, and how which opportunities or even not very positive experiences sometimes, that I don't like to call failure, but more like learnings in order to grow.
Yes, exactly. So curiosity for me, I was a very curious child, and always wanted to know kind of what does that button do and what's over there. And I think at some point curiosity gets we stop asking questions at some point, and we just kind of accept the things that are told to us. Like if we think of children continuously asking why, and then they get to a point where they stop doing that and they're given answers. So instead of asking questions and looking for our own answers, we start to accept the ones that are given to us as a default, and we kind of we're given more and more, and we accept them. And then at some point we take on those stories and those answers as our own, and we stop looking for things beyond that about ourselves. And yes, exactly as you said, when we stop asking, or when we ask questions, we look for opportunities and for challenges and things that are beyond where we are, and we move forward. And if we stop asking questions, if we don't ask questions, we stay where we are.
Exactly.
And we don't see what's possible.
And we don't. Yeah.
Yes.
And it can be comfortable, but also quite frustrating at some point.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have any special moment that taught you that? Because I mean, most of the time when we start a business, especially in coaching, I think it's a bit of a personal journey as well to get there.
Yes, definitely. So my own personal journey was that I was kind of getting to the end of my 30s, and I'm child-free by choice, so don't have children, and I'd kind of never really intentionally thought about what that would look like for me. It was just something that intuitively felt right for me, and I hadn't kind of challenged it. So for myself, I was comfortable with that. What I was uncomfortable with was the weight of expectation of other people, and the when are you having children, or even the assumption that you have children. When you meet someone, they ask you how many kids you've got, rather than do you have them. So all of that was kind of on some level making me feel like, well, maybe I'm not fulfilling my purpose. And that question then led me to, well, actually, if I'm not going to be a mother, if motherhood isn't my path, then what is? And instead of feeling quite restrictive, that suddenly felt very open, because I'd kind of closed the door on one particular path, but then all these other possibilities opened for me. And
you basically made a choice, because when we make a choice is when we close a chapter in some way, but we open up a completely new one. So new possibilities, opportunities. Yes.
And it was a choice, but it was more owning that for myself. So it was something that I knew within me, but I hadn't really spoken about much. And if people asked me questions about if I was child free or did I have children, I'd feel some kind of embarrassment around it and kind of skirt around and then reflect the question back and ask them something about themselves. So I wasn't owning it for myself. And that decision point was a choice to own that for myself as part of my identity. And in doing that, then that opened up that possibility of, okay, so if I'm going to be a child-free woman, what does my life then look like? And all tied in with that kind of same kind of almost cracking open was also the acceptance of some innate skills and abilities, and just the way that I am, my sensitivity, my curiosity, my sense of empathy and intuition, all those things which the world doesn't always value. The world likes logic and kind of hard shells and getting on and doing stuff and not being overly sensitive and all those things. So once I'd kind of cracked open that identity of I am a child-free woman, all this other stuff came out, as well as I'm sensitive and I'm empathic and I'm intuitive and I like helping people and I like problem solving. So gathering all those parts of me up and kind of bringing them together was like, well, coaching feels like such an obvious path.
Choice.
And it was kind of like, well, this is obvious. It suddenly felt really
I've
obvious.
been like, that all the time, and you didn't know in fact, because it's that magic that we carry inside, and there are different stages. It's the awareness that there's something more, as you said, then the analysis of what's more, and then finally this awakening to your true self. And starting your own journey. And it's always a journey where, I mean, whatever we do, we are giving, right? So in your case, you decided that all these amazing qualities that you were carrying around were not just for yourself, but you wanted to help other women.
Yes, exactly. And then moving on down that path and actually stepping into that space. So doing my training and getting qualified, because that was important to me, that if I was going to be in that space, I wanted people to feel that I knew what I was doing, even though it's an intuitive skill. There's also kind of an art to it and a structure to coaching, which is important as well. So doing all that and then just stepping into the place, especially then when I find either child-free or childless women as well. So the community that I work with, they're not always, that I do work with mothers as well, but quite often they're women who are either on an infertility journey or who are stepping into a similar place that I was a couple of years ago of, if I'm not going to be a mother, then who am I, and what path does that open up? So it's so enriching for me then to be able to support women who are on a similar path to me, even if their origin story is different, the path they're on now is similar, and to just hold their hand a little bit and bring them forward and say, it's fine, it's a really safe space for you to be in, come with me and I'll open up that space for you, and you can explore it for yourself.
Yeah, because it's so important when we realize, when we are like in this confusion, who I am, it's important to find someone with a similar experience. It's so liberating to say, oh, you too, really? I mean, it becomes like a different journey, definitely, in whatever we do in life. Now, this is definitely an important life choice, but in everyday choices as well is the same.
Yes, yeah. I think especially for the child-free, not by choice, or the childless, not by choice community, they're women often who have expected to be mothers. And then moving into that space of accepting that's not going to be them, their path or their role, it can be quite isolating, especially when the messages from society is your value as a woman comes from being a mother.
Yeah. Especially in some cultures, right?
Yes.
I mean, you can have, you can face, let's say, problems or not acceptance from your partner to start with, your closer family, and then extending to the bigger community. And it can be frightening because you feel lonely, basically.
Yes, yeah. And that's why your quote spoke to me so much, was the having a voice bit is so important, that you do have a voice in those spaces. And it may not always be that they are safe spaces where you can share that if there is that really heavy expectation from family and society that you're not yet in a place that you can kind of stand up and have a voice against. But there are other spaces that are safe spaces and welcoming spaces, and loads of communities of child-free and childless women where you do have a voice and you can be heard in those spaces.
Definitely. Till then, the total awareness and acceptance, because I mean, I suppose that is the aim, right? To accept then finally who we are, and along the journey find those qualities that can serve others as well. I'm actually, it's amazing, you know, I work for women, and my aim is to support them. And even if I can change the mindset of one person, is well, I mean, I'm on the right path. And I suppose, yeah, for you, it counts definitely the same. And do you have any suggestion on how we can face, of course, not just the choice of not having children, but any choice that we are afraid to make? What is the first step?
I think it's coming back to the curiosity idea. It is getting curious about what your own story is and what your own identity is, and a part of that is shadow work of kind of leaning into and accepting the darker bits of yourself that you don't always want to be aware of or accept or spend time thinking about, is to do that kind of slightly icky, uncomfortable bit of looking at those bits of ourselves a little bit more, because we can't move forward as we are unless we're accepting the whole parts of ourselves. If we're always trying to leave a part of us behind, then there's always going to be that as an anchor that holds us back.
Exactly.
Because we can't get rid of that part of us. It's part of our story.
It's part of us. It's our experience. It's our life.
Yes.
And we can leave it behind the second we accepted it. I mean, and say, I can move forward, but we cannot pretend it never existed.
Yes, right? Yeah, and there's parts of us, and quite often there's things that need healing, and we can only heal ourselves. So it's understanding that and accepting that. So it's kind of, that being curious about who we are, who we really are in our whole selves.
Yeah.
And then learning to accept it. And it's not as if you can just do it overnight or just decide to accept It's that's where the work is of doing that. And quite often that's ongoing work. I consider myself a perfectionist in recovery. I still
I understand what you mean.
I have very strong people-pleasing tendencies that I need to kind of to manage. So there's parts of myself that I'm aware of, and because I got curious about them and become aware of them, I see where they trip me up and I see where I self-sabotage. So now I can say to myself, okay, I know what I'm doing now. I need to treat this part of myself very kindly and with compassion, so I can then move on with it. So it's that's the first step, I think.
Sometimes to be aware that of something happening and giving this something a name, it's already very helpful, because it's like we are not scared of that part anymore, but the contrary, as you said, to treat it very well and take and nurture it and actually change our vision of it, because it's us in any way. And I'd like to know, I always ask my guests if there is a word or a quote that you can consider like a bit of the foundation of your why in life and business.
So my my business tagline is to live curious and live bold. And I like those two kind of combinations of being curious so you can find out more about yourself, about the world, about the people that you interact with, communities, family, just being curious about in general, and then taking that information and making bold decisions and deciding this is what I want for myself. And even if it's a little bit scary, I'm going to step forward into it. Even if it's a little step, I'm going to make that step. Even if I need to find someone who can help me make that step, it's a step. So it's kind of that boldness of owning who you are and moving forward. I think can be a really powerful thing, especially for women, when we're typically kept small and quiet and held back, of being curious and being bold and stepping out into life.
Yeah, definitely. And as you said, I mean, it's the nice image you gave us about the person taking your hand and helping you and guiding you. And it's very comfortable and gives you hope, right? To have someone to guide you, because sometimes we feel we are giving a step in the void. That is even the case, but there's something on the other side. I mean, you won't fall in a never-ending hole. You will land somewhere. So, okay, that's lovely. And so thank you very much for being with us. I just want to remind everyone that your contacts will be in the post, in the bio, on the podcast, everywhere. We cannot miss it. Thanks again for being here, and I see you very soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.